All right, let's get to it. Our big story tonight, taking a closer look at where we stand in Southeast Michigan when it comes to job growth and economic investment. The Detroit Regional Chamber released their State of the Region report this week, and it gives us a pretty good look at how we stack up compared to the rest of the country, and not just flat numbers, but how we're growing. There are positive trends and some serious points to where work needs to be done. The Detroit Regional Chamber's State of the Region report shows our incomes are growing. The average unemployment rate is down to the national average, and home values are rising. In the past 5 years, over 36%. That's almost double the national rate. The region has also added over 60,000 skilled trade jobs in the last 5 years. Private sector jobs also on the rise in that same time frame, over 12%. Looking at specific investments in the future, Michigan is #1 when it comes to mobility projects and investment. The region has a high concentration of aerospace and defense employment, and the healthcare industry continues steady growth, though our average salary of just over $51,000 falls below the national wage. There are a few red flags. The Community Well-Being Index puts Detroit near the bottom, 158th out of 189 communities around the country. The Chamber also notes only 39% of adults have post-secondary degrees, and third-grade reading proficiency dropped to 42%. So I sat down with Detroit Regional Chamber CEO Sandy Baruah, who talked candidly about some of these growth trends and what it will take to move the numbers even further and improvement plans. Take a look. What is the one thing that pops out saying, I hope we see growth here?
For me, the most important thing is per capita income growth. And that is an area because, you know, we've had this conversation in our country, not just here in the region, over the last 10 to 15 years of how personal income growth has stagnated. Year over year in the Detroit region, we've had personal income growth of 6.4%. And over 5 years, it's closer to 11%. I mean, it's an incredible growth story in terms of how much people's incomes are rising here.
So we're seeing that growth pattern, but when you look at the number itself, it's around $31,000 a year. So then when you take that next step and say, how do we push this even further? How do you make sure those numbers keep going in the right direction?
Yeah, so that's a whole bunch of different factors. There's no silver bullet for that. So first of all, to put that $31,000 rough number into perspective, that's still about $10,000 less per year than the average person working in Seattle. So we still have a lot of room to go and to grow. But in order to keep that number growing, there's the first things we need to do. First of all, we need to ensure that our education system is functioning and well at the K through 12 level and through adult education, community colleges, 4-year. And as you've talked on this show quite a bit, that's a red flashing light on our radar screen. The other one is making sure that the jobs we're attracting to this region are actually the jobs of tomorrow and not the jobs of yesterday. And when you see the work that, you know, our auto companies are doing to morph into next generation mobility, when you see the work that Dan Gilbert and companies like him are doing to attract technology workers here, we're doing that. We just need to do more of it.
Yeah, so we're looking at #1 in mobility for Michigan and for the area. Also, we're still seeing very strong automotive and really strong also in looking at healthcare. Yeah. That continues to grow over 15 years.
Yeah, healthcare has been a growing sector across the nation, but particularly in Southeast Michigan. I don't think people really understand what world-class healthcare delivery systems we have here in Michigan, and also the high percentage of insured people we have in Michigan, and the high level of research that's taking place in the healthcare, especially through the University Research Corridor, U of M, University of Michigan, and Wayne State. We're a medical powerhouse here.
When you finally see all of these numbers and the data that you've been able to put together all in one place, what does that signal to businesses who may want to locate here? What kind of place is Southeast Michigan putting itself in front of to see, gosh, how much more can we grow and attract business here?
The word is promising. You know, the way this data, if you look at this data, it is promising in several different fronts. One, you know, people say that, you know, if you're an optimistic person, the glass is half full. Well, I'll tell you right now, from our perspective, the glass is 3/4 full. We have a record of success and economic growth that is not just a one-year, you know, flash in the pan. This is 5 years of sustained economic growth that is real, tangible, and sustainable. Secondly, when I say the glass is 3/4 full, it means that we still have a ways to go. I mean, education is primarily one of the issues. Community health and well-being is another one. Getting our labor force participation rate up to kind of a national average. All of those things need to be done, but those are areas that we can work on. And because we're so strong now in so many areas, and we have this record of success, we're in a much better position to tackle those sticky wicket issues than we were maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
You know, I think it's really interesting when Sandy says not only is the glass half full, but we think the glass now is 3/4 full, taking a look at some of these numbers. Nolan, when you looked at this report that came out this week, what was the one thing that popped into your mind about saying, good, we're so glad that that number is going up?
Per capita income growth.
Okay, it's the same thing that Sandy said, yeah?
Yeah, you know, it's up 20% in 5 years. I didn't think that number was true when I first read it because, you know, the narrative has been household income or per capita income is stagnant, not growing here. 20% in 5 years is a pretty healthy clip. It's a good clip. Now, when you think about where we came from and how much we lost before and during the recession, you know, we have a lot of territory to make up, but that's a pretty good clip at making it up.
What did you think when you saw some of these numbers, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. That number in particular contradicts the narrative that even the governor has admitted to, which is that not enough people are feeling this recovery in their households. I'm not sure that I believe that it has the effect that we all want it to yet.
Well, I think it speaks to the sort of jobs that are being created in this economic comeback. There are a lot of really good jobs being created, a lot of high-tech jobs, a lot of jobs around the universities, these research universities. The other thing is housing values finally getting back to where they were pre-Great Recession. Right. And if, you know, we got hit really hard here with the housing crash, and now they're within just a few dollars of those levels.
And the problem, though, of course, is that tax revenues can't recover at the same pace. So
no, it'll take longer.
10, 20 years from getting local governments to the place where they had the same money that they had 10 years ago.
Now that's a problem for the state. It's a good deal for taxpayers.
Well,
yeah, you know,
sort of, except that
when you look at
like sinkholes.
When you look at infrastructure, when you look at some of these numbers as well, when you look at the amount of STEM jobs, and you talked about the university corridors and having people prepared for this next generation of high-paying jobs that I think sometimes we can't quite put our fingers on what that's going to be. Education obviously comes into the picture here, and that concerted effort that now hopefully we're going to be seeing from the business community and from other angles saying we've got to do something to shake up what our K-12 program is, not only in Southeast Michigan but across the state. Nolan, you're smirking at me.
Yeah, because, you know,
they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. They're going to.
Well, but how can we say they're not going to do it?
Oh, because they haven't. And you know, I wrote last Sunday about my frustration with plan after plan after plan after plan. Business leaders, you know, got a little irritated with me because I question what's the point of their planning. They're doing a second plan after the Governor's Commission came out with a plan that is basically, not entirely, but nobody, who's championing that? Who's picking that up and saying, hey, let's go, let's run with this? We are in the planning stages perpetually in this state. Other places have managed to rally behind a strategy, an idea, a set of goals and principles. We keep setting goals. The Board of Education. Top 10 in 10 years. We're 3 years into that. We're no closer than we were when we started.
We got 15 seconds left.
Yeah, no, the education question is really key, and that's about leadership. Somebody at the top of all of this has got to decide to take on the political establishment and say, we're gonna change these things, and it's going to be better for everybody in the long run. It'll be a little painful.
And it's got to be a cohesive